Hi, thank you for joining me today for my UNC Greensboro Gerontology Capstone presentation. My name is Melissa Valyo-Smith. I am a certified recreation therapist, and I am also a certified dementia practitioner. I currently own my own business, which is called Be Unique Recreation Therapy, and through this business I work with a variety of age groups, but I do focus on adults with intellectual developmental disabilities, as well as older adults that are currently in day centers, assisted living, or memory care facilities. This program's helped my ability to work with my clients better, be able to provide them the best services possible. Throughout this program, I've learned a lot of different information that I can give to my clients to make it easier on them. In this capstone presentation, I'm going to be reviewing the gerontological framework, theories, research, gerontological practice. And then I'm going to go into the field experience that I had at Hanover Manor, Alpha House, and the Berkeley. After that, I will reflect on the program as a whole, what I learned from it, what I would like to continue to learn, and how I will be using this in my practice. So we'll start off with the gerontological framework. This provides structure to the study of human development and aging. And the main perspective that we look at it through is the biopsychosocial perspective. And that looks at different lenses, being biological, psychological, and social lenses of aging. Health and wellness are an interaction between all three of these. And by looking at all three, you can focus more on the individual and what one considers to be healthy, and not just look at how your physical health is. So those with a medical lens are going to look at just the physical aspects to gauge successful aging. But using the biopsychosocial perspective, we can look at many lenses and the individual can judge if they're aging well and what they need to change to age well. For example, someone may not be able to walk anymore, they may be in a wheelchair, but they may still be participating in activities they enjoy. There's wheelchair tennis, there's arts and crafts that you can still do. There are adventures you can still take in a wheelchair, and that may allow for someone to feel psychologically and socially positive in their aging, and therefore they feel that they are aging well. The community and policy perspectives look at community access and age-appropriate healthcare and supports that are in place. It also looks at housing availability. Policy is looking at equity and access for older adults. These policies could pertain to affordable programming, prevention and wellness programming, and workforce. So as an older adult continues to age, they may still want to be in the workforce, and those policies protect them if they do still want to work. Ageism is still a thing, and ageism prevents a lot of people from doing what they'd like to do still because people look down on older adults. So making sure that policies are in place for our aging population is going to allow for them to continue to do things that they would like and that they may still need to do as well. Our next slide is theory. Theories are very important in our field. It helps provide structured framework for gerontologists. It is something that our professionals can use to help guide their research, to promote critical thinking, as well as to assist in explaining the aging process. Without having theories, our field would not be looked at as a legitimate field. Research and theories help build that legitimacy in our field. I want to talk about two different theories that I learned about in the program, and they were ones that stuck out to me a lot. So the first one is the interpretive theory on aging. This is a cluster of theories, and it's based on how our social life interprets the view of aging. And this view grows and changes with us, with our beliefs, with our interactions, and our identity kind of forms those thoughts on aging. So, for example, growing up in the 80s, a lot of the advertisements that were shown showed older adults as being unable to do things, unable to learn. They were fragile. They needed support all the time. And so growing up, you think that older adults are like kids or babies. They need extra help. But as you learn and you meet older adults outside of your family, you see how they can participate in many different things. It helps to change your view on how older adults are. So when I was in high school and I was a lifeguard, I met a gentleman that would come swim every day, and he was in his 80s. When I was a little kid, I did not think an 80-year-old would be able to swim or be that physically active. So as I grew up, my view on older adults changed. And I believe that's how a lot of people are as well. And we will never stop changing our views as we learn new information, and especially as being a professional in this field, learning the different theories and putting them to use are going to help evolve your viewpoint as well. The next theory that was very important to me was the place attachment theory. I actually learned about this theory in a supplemental class. It was a recreation therapy course, and place attachment theory is exactly what it says. It is an emotional bond between a person and a specific place. I think that this theory can be very beneficial to study in the future, because I do think that it has a place to be used, especially with those with cognitive decline. I think that finding those emotional bonds with a place can help professionals in our field work with older adults that are having difficulty moving, having difficulty living in a place and forgetting where they're at. I think that the benefits of this will be shown in the future. So theory leads into research. Without theories, we would have no research, and doing that research guides our community into evidence-based practice. And so that evidence-based practice gives gerontology legitimacy, showing other professions that we have researched information and that we are applying what we have found out into our different professions within gerontology. So further growth in aging research and the overall field of gerontology is very important. using the research that we do can provide greater societal and practical impact. Researching different topics will allow us to be able to provide the best information and data we can to the people that are building the policies, to the government, to local area governments. And building the best policies we can provide equality to the older adults in the area. Research is also important for our up-and-coming gerontologists as well as our current practitioners. This gives reliable knowledge to educate potential gerontologists and give them the best, most up-to-date information possible, so they have a heads up going into the field on what they will be doing and what is useful information. From the practitioner lens, research is needed so we can implement protocols, interventions that will be of good and practical use to our clientele. Different types of research that we do are qualitative and quantitative and longitudinal studies. And then there's the mixed method as well. I wanted to mention longitudinal studies because these are very important in the study of aging. You want to have research that is done over a longer period of time so you know what is more effective in helping or keeping different things at bay with our aging population. For example, if somebody has a potential intervention that could keep somebody in the same cognitive area or prevent cognitive decline, you would need to study that over a longer amount of time to ensure that it is actually going to work and that it proves over time. So now it is time to put our studies into practice. And when we go out into our field, we are going to need to look at a variety of different things. First things we're going to look at are concepts and assessments. Some concepts that are predominant in our field are longevity and life expectancy, ageism, and adaptation. Now for these, we want to look at a person's longevity in their life. What is going to benefit them through the remainder of their life? What is going to be able to make their life expectancy longer and still in a positive manner? So these are different interventions that we will do. Another concept that's predominant in gerontology is that of ageism. That is brought up a lot. It is brought up in our ethics that we'll get to momentarily. Ageism is where there is prejudice against older adults. And this is thinking they are not capable to do things. So some older adults can be fired from their jobs just because a company would like younger people to come in. They don't think that the older adult might be as productive. Ageism could also be within sports. It could be within different activities, not just work. There's a concept also of learned helplessness, and unfortunately, this concept is kind of side by side with ageism. People will step in and help an older adult do something when they don't actually need the help, but they get so used to that help that they just stop doing it for themselves. And from then on, they believe they need that help. So this is ageism, and learned helplessness is a combined concept that we need to work on stopping through our practice, teaching not only older adults what they're able to do, but also teaching our other populations about what older adults can actually do. Adaptation is learning how to be able to adapt not just ourselves and our practice to the people we're working with, but also adapting policies, adapting communities, adapting programming to fit into the abilities of the older adults that we're working with. Assessments, there are a variety of different assessments that you're going to use throughout the practice, and these are going to depend on who you're working with and what you're working on. There are different physical assessments, there's cognitive assessments, there are quality of life assessments, and so many more. A practitioner will use the appropriate assessment according to where they're working and what they're working on. Ethics are very big in our practice. There are 3 main organizations that provide code of conducts and ethics for us, and these groups focus a lot on showing respect, providing information, advocacy, accountability, and above all, respecting the rights of our older adults. And another thing that they focus on too is that we owe acts of dignity. We need to make sure that people are being treated properly and that they are not treated like little children, that they have their dignity. Communication is very important as well. Effective communication, building professional rapport, and professionalism overall is very important when you're working with the clients. There have been numerous studies about how people will speak to older adults without knowing if they have any disabilities. For example, a lot of people, when they meet an older adult, will immediately raise their voice up and talk to them louder because they assume that they have a hearing problem. But that's not the case. You don't need to raise your voice unless they request you to. Some people will use smaller words and more infantile language as well when they're with older adults. So these are things that as professionals we need to look at when we are speaking with our clients, but also when others in the profession are speaking with them. This is a very good area to have training, especially with nursing staff, activity staff, other therapy staff, even with dining and housekeeping staff at facilities, because they will automatically go into that more childlike grammar and structure. Another very important part for our practice is collaboration. Being able to work with multiple disciplines is the best way to treat our clients. So working with nursing staff, with social workers, with therapies, with even elder law to make sure that we're providing the best opportunities possible for our clients. It's a great holistic approach, meaning treating their whole selves, their biological, social, and psychological parts of their life. Now we'll get into my field experience. I went to a standalone facility, and they have one house that's Hanover Manor. It's an assisted living portion. And then Alpha House is the memory care facility. Hanover Manor had 42 residents, and Alpha House currently has 25 residents. And Alpha House is the memory care portion. There are other communities that fall under the same parent company, Lakeside and the Berkeley. I did go to the Berkeley a couple of times to observe and evaluate their activity program. During my field experience, my main objectives were to present an activity based off of the place attachment theory. I was going to learn more about Naima's roles in the community. Naima is the field experience supervisor for me at Hanover Manor, Alpha House, and the Berkeley. I was going to assist activity department where needed and learn about requirements for standalone assisted living and memory care facilities. My first objective was planned for, and I made up interventions for activities based on place attachment theory. But unfortunately, with some staff changes and vacations and some other uncontrollables, I was not able to get on the schedule for that. So I ended up working with Naima to work on the July activity calendar, to evaluate the activity department at the Berkeley, to assist the activity staff at Hanover Manor and Alpha House, and to learn about requirements for standalone AL and memory care facilities. So it took a little bit to get used to the change and figure out exactly what I was going to be doing there. But it turned out to be a really good experience. In this picture up top here, you'll see me with one of the residents, and we are doing a number-based activity. They would choose a card, and whatever number was on there, they would have to give me that number of a category. So for example, the category would be foods, and say they drew a number 5. They would have to give me 5 foods. And this activity was done in the Alpha House in memory care. And this other picture is Spring Chicken here. She just turned 103, and she celebrated her birthday last weekend. And she comes to every single activity and has an amazing memory. She brought up an activity that I had actually done in the past with them, probably a year or so ago, about the largest mammal. And she remembers it's the whale shark, and she loves to talk about that. So what I learned during this field experience: always be flexible. That was the big one right away, and it was a little difficult at the beginning to feel comfortable and kind of get into the groove of what I was going to be doing, since I had the activities set in my head. So being able to go with the flow. Training. Training was one of the most requested things from the staff at the facility, not just activity staff, but also nursing staff and the dining staff. I actually spoke to them a lot as well, and they want to learn more about how to work with people with cognitive decline, how they can help people that have trouble with holding silverware. They want to prevent that learned helplessness that I talked about earlier. They want to be able to encourage people to be as independent as they can be. So training was very important to them. And I was able to get Naima to help set up a dementia training program for them, so they're able to get a little bit of training in the near future. I also learned that everyone has their own unique approach to working with older adults, and no way is absolutely right and no way is absolutely wrong. And stepping back and listening to why somebody is doing it a certain way helps you learn more as well. Because it was difficult going in there to evaluate and observe their activities when I have my own view of doing them. So I learned a lot from them as well on how they do it. And I've learned that there's ways to supplement what they're doing as well without feeling like you're stepping on their toes. The connection between the practice and the theories, I wish I would have been able to do more with the place attachment theory, but that is something that I want to look into more in the future. It was interesting seeing how people viewed older adults, as you would get younger staff members that are very new to working with them, thinking that they are helpless and need more help than they actually do. So that was beneficial in talking to them and giving them different ideas and using the theories to help them understand that there is a spectrum of aging. You don't just age the exact same way. Everybody ages different, and everybody's stronger in certain areas than other people. So, staff and resident relationships. An outsider's view sometimes can show that staff may not care, or it appears they don't care. But working with them and talking to them really cemented that people that work in this field truly do love their residents, and they do want their best, want the best for them. They just sometimes don't have the training, the time, or other things to help them show that appreciation of their resident. Another thing I learned during my field experience was that most people have no clue that there is a field of gerontology. A lot of people know there's doctors that specialize working with older adults, but they didn't realize that you could study the field of gerontology and then focus in from there. So I ended up explaining to a lot of people what my degree was and what I was doing with it and what I would be doing in the future. A lot of people assume that I would be going to work at a SNF or a CCRC or a standalone facility. A lot of people were surprised that I would be continuing my private practice and focusing on older adults to work on their cognitive abilities or physical abilities, everything like that through recreation therapy. And another thing that I learned that I saved to last because it's very important is the residents and the staff need more education on the residents' rights. Just because somebody is older doesn't mean we know what's best for them. And a lot of times staff members will listen to the family, and the family will be saying they need to be out of their room, they need to be doing this, they need to go to activities, they need to, instead of listening to that resident. Recently, during my field experience, one lady was brought out in the morning, and she at first didn't want to come out, but she had a great time when we were doing our trivia. And she was answering and talking and interacting with everybody. And then after lunch, staff brought her back out, and there wasn't really anything going on. We had a movie playing. I was talking to people. She did not want to be out of her room, and she would get upset and cry. But her family told staff that she needs to be out of the room. And this is where education on a resident's right would come into play. She was up all morning and lunch. That was great for her. She was in her chair, she was out of the bed. Now for the afternoon, family, the resident, and staff need to find a compromise. Maybe a comfortable chair in her room if she doesn't want to interact socially in the afternoon. Education for their rights is just extremely important. And compromises can be found to make everybody happy and comfortable. So reflecting on the program overall, along with my field experience, I realized that there is so much under the gerontology scope that would be beneficial to learn. I will never be an expert at estate planning and wills, but I really do want to learn more about that. And in the future, we'll see if there's classes, speak to different organizations to try and help build a better idea and understanding of this. Because I'm not going to be working with my clients to make a will or do estate planning, but I'd like to be able to give them general ideas, directions on who they should speak to and what to do for this planning. The variety of employment opportunities and areas to work in through gerontology is amazing. I think that is what kind of caught my eye when I first started thinking about my master's program. I love that you can learn about the different areas and decide what you want to focus on. But as you grow in your career, you can always move into a different section of gerontology. So for example, if I decided that I was kind of done with the activities and the recreation leisure aspect, the service coordinator positions have really caught my eye and would be of interest. And so in the future, I would kind of look into those too, potentially. What I learned most is that gerontology and recreation therapy are great companion degrees. They are going to combine perfectly together for what I want to do and what I'm going to continue doing. So I'm very happy that I did choose to continue on this gerontology path. The learning never ends. I will continuously be taking classes that benefit working with older adults. There's going to be more and more research. This field is still a young field, and there is so much more to learn. And as technology and medicine and everything improves, so too is the study of gerontology. We're going to have more research coming up all the time that we're going to learn from. And I wanted to also kind of focus on 3 activities that I very much enjoyed during this program. One was the wellness wheel. For this, we had to highlight percentages of the different areas that we did leisurely. And I learned that most of my time was spent focusing on work and others and not focusing on myself. And I think that this activity is very beneficial to use with clients because it gives you a graphic physical representation of where you are putting your energy and where you might need to shift it a little bit to help benefit your psychological and your social aspects. The next item that I really enjoyed doing was the resource portfolio. This is extremely beneficial in helping your clients know what is available for them in certain areas. And so I did one for Petersburg, Virginia, which is one area that I do service, but there are also a couple other counties and cities that I work in that my clients would benefit this resource guide as well. And it's something that can be added to, changed when a service changes, but it is a nice packet that can be given right away to them that they can just flip to find different resources that they may need. And then the final one was throughout an entire class, we viewed the movie Up, and we were given scenarios and ways to assess the main character during that movie. And it was a fun way to practice assessments and looking at how somebody is aging and what affects them throughout that aging process, the good and the bad. I think that was very helpful to have that fictitious character, but you had a visual story background to go with it. And I want to thank you guys very much for watching my presentation. If you have any questions or need more clarification, again, my name is Melissa Valyo-Smith. My email is there at the bottom of the page. I look forward to hearing your feedback, and I thank you for the opportunity. And here are some that I use throughout my presentation.